Testing. Okay, welcome to the stream, guys. This time we are going to be streaming myself, and it's going to be a little different than some of the other streams that I've been doing recently. I'm going to be streaming myself playing Ranger. I have 2 recorded games here of Ranger in Blitz that I've been playing recently, and I have to say, I know everyone says Ranger's terrible. I actually think Ranger is pretty decent in Blitz. So I had a 3rd game that I unfortunately did not record that was really good, where I was playing against a very strong IRA player. It was an extremely close game. But unfortunately, I did not record that one because I forgot to. So sadly, we're just going to have the 2 games here, but this is a redliner based Ranger deck. So basically the way that this deck is going to work is that almost everything in my deck costs 0. And I have a few things that cost for 1, which I might pay for with a pitch, or I might pay for with the tunic. Those are things that I have, I have the option to use that, but the overall strategy is to play a bunch of stuff that costs 0, try to go wide, try to get some damage through. Let's see how it goes. Okay, so I'm going to be playing, my opponent is going to be playing Rhinar, and so I quickly check my items here. I'm going to equip the Perch Grapplers, not for their actual ability, but because they block for 2, I want to have that extra health in case I get hit by a big Blood Rush Bellow or something like that. And then I am going to run the classic Ranger Bracers that are going to allow me to put a arrow into Arsenal and give it +1, the Cross Wrap, and of course the Tunic. Now I will say that I'm relatively new to Ranger, so I'm not an expert. So we're going to just say there are probably going to be some mistakes here, but I thought it would be fun to show me playing a less usual class. So I play a take aim, put a red into Arsenal. I use my cross wrap. Looks like I have found something that I do not want on top. I'm going to use Azalea's ability Blind here. Now, interestingly, I get a copy of, what is this thing called? See, I'm running all these weird cards that I don't recognize by sight because it's Ranger. It's very different. Scour the Battlescape. So I'm going to use the Scour the Battlescape. I can put a card from my hand on the bottom of my deck. If I do draw a card, it's played from Arsenal, so it has go again. I'm going to do that. So I end up putting this Sink on the bottom of my deck, keeping the take cover. I'm going to draw up. I find another Scour the Battlescape, so my opponent is going to block the first one. This does mean, unfortunately, my take aim is going to be wasted here, but that's how it goes sometimes. I could play the other Scour the Battlescape, but I'm thinking, nah, no need to do it. I'm going to hopefully use my copy of Take Cover there in order to get it into Arsenal anyway. Okay. So then it's on to my opponent's turn. Now, if you're looking at my hand, you might notice that I have Irina's Prayer. It's kind of an unusual card to include. The reason that I have that is that this deck would be extremely bad against Viserai and Kano if it weren't playing Irina's Prayer, because it has literally no blue, and it has 38 reds and 2 yellows. So I would basically be unable to defend against arcane damage if not for Irina's Prayer. And yes, it's dead in most matchups, but because I'm Ranger, I can afford to put it in Arsenal and use Azalea's ability to send it away, which makes it less terrible than some cards would be in other cases. So this is going to be the Breakneck Battery coming in here. Strength 6 as an additional cost to play it. Discard a random card. If the discarded card has 6 or more attack, it gains go again. I'm rolling up a random discard for him. And we're going to get, I think it's that one. Does it have 6 or more attack? It is a Massacre, so not only does it have 6 or more attack, but I get intimidated twice. I'm going to do the... I don't know. Oh, yeah, I'm going to do it like this. This is the way that you do a really random Intimidate. You flip all the cards in your hand, make them into a pile, and then just shuffle the pile and put the top 2 out of it. That's a way to do it without having to mess around. Luckily, my Irina's Prayer is intimidated because it's one of the cards that I would most want to block with. In this situation, I think I'm just going to use the Take Cover. That will allow me to put the Scour the Battlescape into my arsenal. Also fairly lucky that didn't get intimidated, so I can still put it there. And then I will I'll take some damage, but I stopped the brunt of the attack, put my card in Arsenal. He does have Go Again, so let's see what he follows it up with, if anything. Probably he is running the Claws, which is, I consider favorable for me. I think the Claws are generally worse than the Club. It's hard to say. I don't know. It's hard to say. In this situation, the Claws are worse than the Club. But actually, I think, now that I think about it, I think the Claws are actually better. Because in Blitz, you're really playing for the big turns. And Claws are going to help you to get those bigger turns faster. Which is to say, a Blood Rush Bellow turn with the Claws is kind of automatically good, or almost automatically good, assuming just basic stuff. Whereas a Blood Rush Bellow turn with Club can be a little less impressive, and because you are playing Brute as kind of a big turns deck rather than a more control-y sort of deck, as you might do in Classic Constructed, yeah. So he's thinking about, so his first Claw does have Go Again here, so he's thinking about using his, what's it called? Oh, yeah, so he wanted to use his Heartened Crossstrap to pay for his second Claw, but I told him that it was only for attack action cards, and he wasn't able to do it, which is fortunate for me, because I would have taken another 3 damage there, probably. Alright, so I'm going to do a Scour the Battlescape, coming in for 3, and I can put a card from my hand on the bottom of my deck, and if I do draw a card, I'm going to use that to send away the Irina's Prayer. So in addition to Azalea's ability, I have several other things that can be used to send away Irina's Prayer. I have Scour the Battlescape and Sink Below. So those are going to give me some more options for getting rid of that if it's an awkward card in hand, as it usually is, because in most matchups it doesn't do anything. Alright, so then my opponent is going to block out against the Scour the Battlescape using a Riled Up there. So then I have actually a pretty solid hand. Oh, this is an earlier version of the build where I am running Knock the Death Whistle. I've actually cut that. So this one actually has 2 blues. My new version has no blues. So I'm going to put a Searing Shot into Arsenal here. So this is actually a minor misplay. I should have done this first and then done the Searing Shot in Arsenal. So first I'm going to do Enlightened Strike for 5 with Go Again, and then I'm going to follow up with the Searing Shot, but I should have left the Searing Shot in hand so that my opponent didn't know what it was going to be. Anyway, E-Strike as a very strong card for this type of build, coming in for 5 with Go Again, and then I'm going to be able to fire my Searing Shot for an additional 4, and if it hits, it will do a bonus +1, so throwing out actually a fair amount of damage here. It's going to be, I'm throwing out 12 damage this turn, 13 if the Searing Shot connects for the bonus +1. I actually really like Searing Shot. I think it's quite a strong card as some of these things go. It's pretty close to being, I don't know. I mean, people do block it out sometimes, but it's kind of close to being a 0-cost Strength 5 attack with 3 block, which is pretty sweet. So my opponent blocks out the E-Strike, and then I fire the Searing Shot for 4. If Searing Shot hits a hero, they lose 1 life. Now, he could block this by using a card from hand plus a Skullcap, or if he had a defense reaction. But otherwise, it's going to be very awkward to block it. He wants to block it completely to prevent the bonus damage, but it's going to be awkward to do so. It would have to be both of his cards or that Skullcap. Let's see what he does. I'm not actually entirely sure why he's playing so defensively. It may be that his strategy here is that he's trying to get set up for that big turn. That's kind of what Brute often wants to do, I feel. Get set up for the real big turn and then come in there with the multiple attacks. But he continues to be defensive, blocking with an attack and the Skullcap, so he doesn't get hit at all, much less take the bonus damage. It's also possible he's trying to fatigue me out, because Ranger is vulnerable to fatigue. I'm not playing Drone, and Drone is banned now, so I wouldn't be able to play Drone in a future version of the deck, even if I wanted to. Or I guess it's technically not banned now, but it's going to be banned. On his turn, though, he's just going to Arsenal and pass, which means that I'm going to be able to put on a fair amount of pressure. So I'm going to use my Redliner to get a Ridge Rider shot, which will allow me to opt. I see a Pathing Helix, which is kind of a bad card that I'm just running because it's an arrow. It has like weird, there's potentially like ultimate synergies combo stuff with it, but it's not reliable. I do end up leaving it on top because my turn is going to be pretty bad. So I end up using the Pathing Helix here so that I can have a Dominated Arrow. Because the other cards that I have in hand, this is a problem that Ranger has sometimes. I have too many things that want to be in Arsenal. I don't have something that reloads one of them into Arsenal, and I can only load an arrow. So I end up going with the Pathing Helix, coming in for 4 with Dominate. The odd hit ability lets you put a card in Arsenal, which is normally not relevant because you can just put a card in Arsenal anyway and it doesn't have go again. Yeah, so Pathian Helix is a pretty weak card, unfortunately. I am running it because I need to have more arrows, but it's not amazing. Now, there is sometimes like a dream combo you can do with it where, I don't know, maybe it's the Perch Grapplers, maybe it's Razor Reflex, but you're doing something that's going to allow it to have, maybe you're just using Rapid Fire or something, but you're using some combo that's going to allow it to have go again, and then you can, if it hits, it will allow you to load another arrow. The problem there is that even then it's not reliable because your opponent could just block it out and deny you the effect, so I don't really like that card very much. So I'm thinking now, which do I want to put in Arsenal, Promise of Plenty or Plunder Run? I end up deciding to do the Plunder Run. I can always use this Sink Below to put the other one back if needed. And I see here that I've now drawn a Take Aim, which has Reload, so I would be able to load up the other one with the Take Aim if I wanted to. This is actually a pretty good aggressive hand. I can do the Plunder Run, play Take Aim, Promise of Plenty for 6, and then reload the Endless Arrow and shoot that. And so fairly threatening. Some of that stuff has, if the promise of Plenty hits, I could refill Arsenal and draw a card. If it doesn't hit, he'll probably be blocking against it, and then the Endless Arrow can potentially draw me a card. Just a fair amount of stuff that could happen this turn. Let's see what he does. This I should also add, this deck is pretty janky. Like I'm not claiming this is the best deck in the world, but I'm having some fun with it, and I think it's better than people think. I know Matt Rogers has done some discussion of the Redliner Ranger build as something that could be effective against certain opponents. So I think that he was saying that it can be good against Kano because it's just real fast and you have the Irina's Prayer for defense. And I think, that could be. So a Barraging Bighorn coming out, and he is going to intimidate me. I have to block this with 2 things to have it not have go again, which is really awkward. He has a card in Arsenal. There's an argument in this situation for just letting it hit, and probably he doesn't have something good with the go again. But I'm not sure. There's also a good argument for defending here and just doing a less big turn myself. I haven't actually damaged him yet, which is not good. But we'll see. We'll see what I do. This game was played in an online armory event, by the way. And you can tell it's not a skirmish because it's Tabletop Simulator. So I think I decided that I'm just going to use the Sink Below and not sink it in order to do the big aggressive turn that I had planned. This does unfortunately give him go again, or not unfortunately, I knew it was going to happen, and then he's going to come at me with a Claw for an additional 3. And I think I just take this hit, and now it is 10 to 20 life, which is not a great situation to be in. But I'm taking damage to try to maintain my tempo and keep the pressure on. We'll see if this ends up being a mistake. 10 life is actually a really low amount of life to be at against Brute, especially a Claws Brute that probably has Blood Rush Bellow, so I think probably I should have been defending more. The problem is Ranger is really bad at defending. So I'm going to use the Cross Wrap. So I use the Plunder Run and it sees a Ravenous... I use that and I see a Ravenous Rabble on the top of the deck. Now Ravenous Rabble is almost always Strength 4 go again in this deck, so it's a good one to have. I end up playing the Plunder Run. So next attack action card I play this turn gains +3, and the next time an attack action card you control hits this turn, draw a card. Then I'm going to use the Take Aim. Next Ranger attack action card you play this turn gains +3, and it reloads. I'm going to reload the Promise of Plenty, and then I'm going to play the Promise of Plenty from Arsenal. So this is an unusual card. If Promise of Plenty hits, each hero who doesn't have a card in their arsenal puts the top card of their deck face down into their arsenal, and if it's played from Arsenal, gains go again. So this is now buffed by this Plunder Run. It's coming in for 6, and if it hits, I will draw a card, and I will put the top card of my deck face down into Arsenal. I know that top card is that Ravenous Rabble, which is a card that I would like to see because it would let me do another attack this turn. So we'll see whether or not he stops me here. There's a fair chance that he will. But I am coming in for 6. It's not 9 because Take Aim doesn't apply to this. Now, one thing I've noticed about these Ranger decks is that I end up playing a lot of generic attacks. Ranger just doesn't have enough attacks that I want to play. I'm hoping that in the future, you know, there's some kind of build that does incorporate more of the specific ranger attacks, but this one at least has, it's kind of a wide deck, and it's using some more of the generic attacks rather than just ranger ones. So I have cards like Scar for a Scar, Ravenous Rabble, Promise of Plenty, Scour the Battlescape, just generic attacks that can go again. I don't have Life for a Life in this deck. It costs 1. I want to have almost everything in the deck costs 0. But yeah. Incidentally, I think that there's like at least some potential to ranger in normal stuff, but it's kind of complicated. There's a good risk of just getting fatigued out or similar things happening to you. But I don't know. Ranger has some cool stuff. I think Ranger's underrated. I think Ranger is bad, but I also think Ranger's underrated. And I say that as someone who has been made jokes about, you know, Ranger being tier 5 or whatever. I don't think Ranger's tier 5. I don't think Ranger's good, but I don't think Ranger's tier 5. Okay. So, my opponent lets this hit, I think, which is kind of good for me because it means that I get these cool effects, but it's kind of bad for me because it means that he might have a really big turn. So I have the Irina's Prayer in hand, which I don't really want to see. But I am going to be able to throw out another threat here with Ravenous Rabble. So Ravenous Rabble coming out, this is going to be Strength 4, and it's going to... it's probably going to be Strength 4. It's going to be Strength 4. Top card's a Pathian Helix. So Ravenous Rabble at Strength 4. So I'm worried at this point that my opponent has like the big combo that he has been blocking heavily in order to try to get, and that I've let him whittle me down too much. But we'll see. I don't know. It's a somewhat bad situation here. He ends up taking 5, and I tell him to put 1 back. Are you running 3 of a Kind and Tome of Fyendal? Nope, I'm running neither of those things. So then I'm going to use the redliner to get an Endless Arrow into Arsenal face up. Now, debatably at this point, I should actually activate Perch Grapplers, but I decide here that I'm not going to take the risk. So if I activate Perch Grapplers, I can actually threaten lethal here. I'm thinking about it. So if I could spend 2 and destroy Perch Grapplers to give face-up arrow cards played from Arsenal go again. I could pitch the Irina's Prayer and use my Tunic. And then I could play the Endless Arrow for 7 with go again. And if it hits, it goes back to hand. And then I can potentially use my Bullseye Bracers to put it back in Arsenal and shoot it again. And that way I would be threatening lethal because he doesn't have any armor left. And by threatening lethal, I would hopefully break whatever big combo he's trying to do. As it stands, I end up not doing that, and I just shoot at him for 7. It's quite possible that I should have broken the boots, pitched the prayer, and used Tunic in order to get the go again in this situation. If I had the Snapdragon Scalers, I would almost certainly use it in this situation to get go again. However, I am coming in for 7 because it is buffed by that take aim that I played early on. And my opponent takes 7. So then my Endless Arrow comes back to hand, which I like. I'm going to put the Irina's Prayer into Arsenal instead because I can't block and because I want to send it away with Azalea's ability. But he just took all that damage, and so I did 17 damage in 1 turn, which sounds really good, but the problem is that now he has a 5-card hand as Brute, and I'm at 10 life. Now, to be fair, I'm actually sort of at 14 life because I can block with all my equipment if necessary. But this could be trouble. Now, one thing that I'm happy about is that my hand is full of 3 blocks. Ranger does have a lot of weaker cards for defense, so there's a fair number of 2 blocks in the deck. But yeah, these 3 blocks that I have are hopefully going to allow me to withstand whatever it is that he thought was so important to save his cards for. And so we'll see what he has to offer. This is definitely not a situation where I'm feeling safe. Brute can, even with the 14 life, if you count the armor, Brute can definitely combo 14 damage in 1 turn. We'll see if he can intimidate my whole hand or whatever. So he leads off with an Awakening Bellow. Next Brute attack action card gets +2 and it intimidates. Or actually, is it attack action card? It might just be next Brute attack. I don't remember. There's like two different things here. Anyway, Awakening Bellow. Intimidating me. I'm not happy with that. The overall situation here not looking incredibly good just because of all the options that my opponent has. So yeah, Awakening Bellow, next Brute attack action card you play this turn, this is yellow, is going to get +2 and it intimidates. Then he plays a Barraging Beatdown and he plays a Sand Sketched Plan also. So search your deck for a card, put it into your hand, discard a random card, and then shuffle. If the discarded card has strength 6 or more, get into action points. So I get intimidated again from the Barraging Beatdown. He's thinking about what card to pull with Sand Sketched Plan. But I'm thinking there's a fair bet here that I am going to be intimidated again from the Sand Sketched Plan, and then he's going to come in and hit me with some stuff. The part of this that I am tentatively kind of not totally terrified by this is that I don't think it's likely that he's going to be able to make good use of the bonus action points. I mean, it'll be good for him to have one, but I don't think having two will do anything, but we'll have to see. Maybe it will. I don't know. He doesn't have that much energy right now, though, which makes me think that, with one more card, probably he can do something like, I don't know, swing his claws twice at me, which is going to be, it's going to hurt, but it's not the worst thing that could happen. I'm very happy that he did not have Blood Rush Bellow this turn. Because Blood Rush Bellow tends to be the big one in terms of Brute doing their huge combo and killing you. And he does have a big combo here, but it's not going to be as much damage as with Blood Rush, I think. He is thinking about his Sand Sketched Plan pull. And I am, meanwhile, just thinking about what's going to happen here. Am I going to get killed? He is also only at 3 life, which is kind of good for me, because it means that if I do some big buffed attack with Dominate, I could potentially just get him, but we'll have to see. Okay, so he pulls his card, shuffles his deck, shuffles those. Okay, and the discarded card is a Massacre. This doesn't actually intimidate me twice, though. It only intimidates me once, because it only gets the second Intimidate from an attack action card. And that means I still have one precious card in my hand for defense. He has one card in hand, so he's probably going to be able to swing his claws at me twice. And one of them is going to hit me with the Barraging Beatdown bonus, so that's going to be... so this is 3 with Go Again. And the Awakening Bellow doesn't apply because it only applies to attack action cards, but the Barraging Beatdown does apply. I'm not going to be able to defend with 2 cards, so it's +3, so it's a Strength 6 Claw. But if he has a Strength 6 Claw followed by... Yeah, so I'm going to block it with the Pathing Helix and take 3. And then he's going to do some other attack. Yeah, so he pitches and swings his other claw for 3. So ultimately, I'm fine with this. I'm going to go down to... Yeah, so I have 2 Endless Arrows and an E-Strike in hand, which is pretty good. So I think I'm going to be fine with this. Take 3. Go down to 4. So I think my opponent had thought that the Massacre was going to do a second Intimidate. And if that were the case, I would have had no cards in hand. I would have potentially gone down to 1 life, though I likely would have used my equipment to prevent that. And if I had gone down to 1 life, I would be in Reckless Swing range. Now I'm in 2 Reckless Swing range, which is not great. But I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to do a powerful turn of my own, which is going to turn things around. Let's see if I can do it. We're both very low, but he had his big turn, and I think he didn't get as much damage as he was thinking he might. I think it was not worth it for him to avoid blocking so much in order to do that turn. And now I do my top deck here, and I see a Razor Reflex. and I am going to use the cross wrap, as embarrassing as it is, or I am going to use the ability to send. I kind of have to, just to send away the Arena's Prayer. It's kind of embarrassing to show your opponent that you have Razor Reflex, but sometimes you got to do it. And then I do an E-Strike. I think this is an E-Strike. I think this is E-Strike 7, and I'm just going to use the Razor to make it go up to 10. Which means that he'll have to block with his whole hand if he wants to avoid, or he could actually block with 3 cards plus his skull cap, but he's going to have to block really heavily if he wants to avoid me getting the go again. Or I might have done E-Strike 5. No, I think I did E-Strike 7. Yeah, so he blocks for 6, and I use Razor and go up to... He blocks for 6, I use Razor and go up to 10. And let's see what happens here. And actually, I just win. So I think maybe that was, I don't know what that was. Maybe it was some kind of bluff where he was trying to make me think that he had a defense reaction for 4 in hand, and therefore it would be dangerous or wasteful for me to play Razor, and he was hoping that I would balk and then he would have 2 cards in hand for his next turn. But that's not what he did. And it turned out he was just under blocking there, and the Razor Reflex killed him, and I won the game. So I was happy with that outcome. It was not necessarily what I expected, given that I had unfortunately shown him the Razor Reflex, but it was, however, enough to get me the win. So that game, I thought, I did win, but I thought I was definitely in some major danger there. I didn't feel like it was a very easy situation for me by any means. All right, so that was the first Ranger game, and now we're going to show a second Ranger game. This time I am playing against Visceri. Now I want to say that in this game there were a lot of issues with the... in this game there were a lot of issues with lag for some reason, so there's going to be some moments where people are just hanging around waiting for the cards to show up, and because this is recorded, my plan is to just skip over those so that we can hopefully still have a quick flowing game. This time it's going to be Ranger versus Visceri. My opponent has one of the little counter things set up on top of his Runechant tokens, which I think is a sign that he might be playing a 1-turn kill deck or similar, as otherwise you can just typically use dice or something else to count those. But for the 1-turn kill decks, because they can build up so many Runechants, people often use the counters, similar to the life counters. All right, Ranger versus Runeblade. So the one cool thing about Ranger is that you get to use your normal equipment against Runeblade, because you have Arcane Barrier on your Skullcap and on your Bullseye Bracers. You don't have to use, you don't have to equip a Null Rune item or whatever. So my opponent makes a Runechant and then swings for 1+3, and I'm actually happy about this because I can take the 1, which is going to enable the Scar for a Scar that I have in hand to have go again, and then I'm going to block with a single card. I block with the Searing Arrow, which is kind of sad. I actually really like Searing Arrow. I think it's pretty good as the 0-cost arrows go, but yeah. However, I did stop his attack. Now I'm going to draw up, and now I should be able to do some aggressive stuff of my own. Counter on Tunic. So I do have 2 of these cards that rely on being in Arsenal, but what I can do this turn is I can do the E-Strike, or I can do the Scar for a Scar for 4 with Go Again. I can follow that up with E-Strike 7, sending one of the cards to bottom. Then I can Arsenal the other one, and it will be ready next turn for an aggressive play. So my opponent starts to drag out a Reduce to Runechant, but then thinks differently and decides to take 4. He may be trying to do this to disable potential healing. One thing about these OTK Visceri decks is that they have the Reaping Blade, which prevents someone from healing if they have more life than their opponent. So now any Sigil of Solace that I'm playing is now off. So then I'm going to do the E-Strike for 7, and then I'm going to be putting that Promise of Plenty into my arsenal. This time my opponent pitches in order to play a Reduce to Runechant red, blocking for 4 and creating a Runechant. He lets it resolve and then plays another Reduce to Runechant, that time for free. giving him a second Rune Chant and preventing all 7 damage from my E-Strike. So I did manage to land 4 damage, but he managed to create some Rune Chants there. He has, of course, very little tempo, but because the style of deck that he's playing generally doesn't really care very much about tempo. All he's doing is going to be trying to build up a bunch of Rune Chants. So here we're seeing, this is one of those laggy moments that I was discussing earlier. We're going to just skip ahead to the time when my hand shows up. And my opponent simply plays a Read the Runes. Basic. He gets on up to 5. Very basic. I'm going to play the Promise of Plenty from Arsenal, so it has Go Again, and it's coming in for 3. If it hits, each hero who doesn't have a card in their arsenal puts the top card of their deck face down into their arsenal. So 3 with Go Again, and potentially going to refill my arsenal. My opponent opts to block with his armor here, conserving his cards in hand. Not sure if that means that he is playing a more aggressive deck that's going to have something more quickly. I'm then going to use this Take Aim to reload, and I'm going to use it to reload my other Promise of Plenty and then play that one as well. And then I'm going to follow that one up with an arrow, which will be buffed by the Take Aim. I'm not entirely sure. Probably the Searing Shot, but I'm not sure. So, yep, reload with Take Aim and then play the other Promise of Plenty. Once again, it's played from Arsenal, so it's going to be coming in for Strength 3. Take Aim is a very strong card in this deck. I think it's one of the best cards that has Reload because it just is going to give you more damage. And this deck has so many things that rely on being played from Arsenal that you want to have some of those reload effects that you can use in order to get some value there and get the cards like Promise of Plenty and Scour the Battlescape and stuff to be more reliable. So against this one, my opponent actually pitches 2 cards and plays an Unmovable from hand, which is, I don't know why he did that instead of just blocking with those cards, but he may have wanted to get the Unmovable out of there. I'm then going to use the Redliner to put the Searing Shot in Arsenal. Grogboxer asks, is this ladder? Yeah, this was a ladder game that I played. This was a ladder game that I played with Ranger versus Viserai. And then I'm going to do the Searing Shot, which my opponent lets hit, so it lands for 7 or something. So over, yeah, because it's actually 8 because it's 7 plus 1 for the on-hit effect. So I'm very happy with that turn. I don't know why he played the Unmovable there, but I'm very happy with that turn. I did a lot of damage. All right, so now I have, now my opponent is going to just play another Read the Runes and make some more Rune Chants. This is how these decks normally work. So what they're going to do is they're going to just try and stall the game and play defense reactions and use Read the Runes and stuff and just get into that situation. I used the Skullbone Crosswrap, revealing my Endless Hero. Unfortunately, it's a second Irina's Prayer, not what I want to see. I'm going to put this one on the bottom. This is a really, really awkward hand, so what I actually should do here is I think use the, I should probably use the Perch Grapplers. I go for a blind Azalea play. I hit a Sigil of Solace. Normally that would be great. In this situation, the Sigil is disabled, so I'm going to use it just to get it out of there. I think in this situation, it might have been good to actually use the Perch Grapplers. I could pitch Irina's Prayer and use my Tunic, then Perch Grapplers, then shoot the Endless Arrow for 4 with Go Again, then reload it with the Red in the Ledger, pitch the Scar for a Scar, and shoot that for 5 with Go Again. Then I could use the Coax a Commotion after that, and conceivably if the Endless Arrow had hit, I could also use my Bullseye Bracers to get it back. But I think in this situation, I am thinking I want to save my armor. This is a situation where he's going to be coming in with Arcanite Ascendancy soon, and I want that Perch Grapplers for armor against it. So I think that's what I was thinking, but it does mean this turn is really unaggressive, so all I'm going to do is throw out a Coax a Commotion. Not a strong turn by any means. Not a strong turn at all. I looking back on it, I think I probably should have gone with the more aggressive route, though I could be wrong. We'll have to see. But I think I could have done more in this situation by using the Perch Grapplers, even though they're not normally a card that you want to use. My opponent blocks with a card plus the second block from his grasp. And I end up putting... So the reason that I'm not putting Irina's Prayer into Arsenal here is because I actually want to have Irina's Prayer to defend against his... That's actually another reason that the previous play might not have been good. It probably would have involved pitching the Irina's Prayer. And I actually kind of want to have the Irina's Prayer to defend against his Rune Chants. It's the only thing in my deck that's going to let me defend against it. Grogboxer says, "Oh, so this is commentary over a replay." Yeah, so this is. I already played this game. I played this game sometime last week, and this is me commenting on it. So when I do my own games, I'm usually commenting over a replay. All right, so my opponent is gonna simply play the that barrier thing that gives him a bunch of rune chants. And yeah, so he's up to 12 rune chants now, and then damage will be blocked by rune chants essentially. I'm going to use the Skullbone Cross Wrap on Scar. Ravenous Rabble, I'm happy to see Ravenous Rabble instead of Scar. I will totally take that trade. Switching them out. We are having some little lag issues here, as I was discussing earlier. Let's skip ahead a bit. Skipping. There is this game was like weird and laggy. There we go. So there's the Rabble in hand, Rabble in arsenal. Azalea's ability has been used. Okay, we skipped all that stuff. Now we're playing the Ravenous Rabble. We're going to reveal the top card. It's almost certainly red. It's red. It's a plunder run. I'm coming in for strength 4 with Go Again. My opponent, I can't see his cards, but he has cards. Grogboxer says lag will get worse with Monarch according to the mod maker. Okay, that's interesting to know. I think that one option that people might do is they might move to there was a previous mod that was made by KP. The KP version of the mod has a lot less features. Like, it doesn't have the deck builder and stuff. You'd have to import your deck manually. But because it doesn't load all the cards by default, it runs much smoother. So I think that there's a good chance... that if adding Monarch causes the lag to be too severe, people will use this mod for deck building and for maybe playing in a very stable situation, but will switch to the KP mod if they want to do something that's going to be higher, that's going to be, played online, played in a situation where it's more important to avoid lag. All right, we got a spammer here in the chat, banned. Spammer asking me if I want to become famous. Not incredibly, quite frankly. I think there would be some upsides. I think there would be some downsides. I also think that buying fake followers is not a very good way to become famous. All right. So Metagod says, psh, become famous. Meanwhile, I am throwing out a red in the ledger here, which is actually not all that good against him because his deck doesn't really do very much that I care about with respect to multiple actions in a turn. He's probably just going to take one huge attack. In any case, all it does is knock some rune chance off of his barrier. Then a Mavrian Skies comes out into a Mordred Tide comes out into a Read the Runes. So he's going to make a bunch of rune chant tokens. He makes, I think, 5. Making up for the ones that I just destroyed. I'm going to use the Cross Wrap, reveal a Ridge Rider shot. And then there's a Take Aim. Metagod says, already famous. And Brutapcast says, is it even fame? I would say I am... I would not say that I'm famous. I would say that I am... I don't know. I think I'm somewhat known in this community. But... I think there's a big difference between me and like somebody who's actually e-famous. Like I have a friend... I have a friend who is a doctor who is a famous blogger and who has had to deal with like actual weird problems and difficulties in his life because of his e-fame, like stuff with the New York Times and stuff. And that's kind of a very different situation. I think that I think the Flesh and Blood community is small and friendly, and I think that we don't have some of the same problems that other parts of the internet do. I think being known for Flesh and Blood videos or whatever is pretty different than e-fame and pretty different than other types of e-fame and doesn't have some of the downsides. So this turn I'm just doing a gigantic arrow. So it's a Searing Shot and it's buffed by 2 Take Aims and a Plunder Run. My opponent plays a Sigil. So I think I'm strength... One of the Take Aims was yellow, so I'm at strength 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm at strength 12, I think. And if it hits, I get to put something in Arsenal, which I don't actually want to do. So coming in for strength 12, my opponent heals. And I'm not sure what else he's going to do here. He reacts with a springboard somersault from hand. So I think the healing has not updated thanks to lag. I think he went to 11. Then this is going to come in for 12, but he blocks 2 of it, so he's going to survive. We're going to just advance past this lag. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, so yeah, as I was saying, he ends up going to 1 life, and I draw a card from the plunder run. It's another plunder run, and I put it in arsenal. So I'm now thinking, okay, he's at 1 life. This is a really good situation for me. What I need to do is just play a arrow with dominate, a buffed arrow with dominate, and that could end the game right there. But my opponent, of course, probably has other plans, and I think this may be the turn that he's going to go big. Yep, so he breaks his Bloodsheath Skeleton, discounting things by the number of rune chants that he has. First non-attack action and first attack action, so he has a discount of 14. Plays a Slogism Red to give this +6, and then he's going to come in with Arknight Ascendancy and 14 rune chants. So his Arknight Ascendancy is strength 11 with Dominate, and he also has 14 rune chants. First, I'm going to use my Tunic's energy to play Irina's Prayer. The Irina's Prayer that I've been saving in hand for a while is finally going to pay off by blocking a bunch of the rune chants that my opponent's sending in. So he has 14, and we're getting a little bit of lag, blah, blah, blah. Okay, it ends up blocking 5 of them. So I take 9, I'm at 10. Then against this one, this is coming in. So this is coming in for a lot of damage. I'm going to block 3, 4, 5, 6 here, I think. So then I would take 4, and he would get 4 rune chants. It has Dominate, so I can't block with more cards from hand, sadly. I could block with my cross wrap, and I've thought about it, but I've decided here that I'm not going to block with my cross wrap. The Sink Below was the card that was on top for my Irina's Prayer, I believe. The reason that I'm not blocking with the cross wrap here is that I want to increase my chance of getting a powerful Dominate arrow to end the game next turn, because I'm really hoping that I can just close the game next turn, and I want to have that extra opt from the cross wrap to try to draw into a powerful arrow. I know that with the Irina's Prayer played and no more Tunic and stuff like that, his rune chants are going to be a big problem for me. And he's going to have 4 rune chants after this because his Arknight Ascendancy is coming in for, I believe, 10, and I'm blocking 6. Or actually, I guess 3, 4, 5, 6. Maybe it's coming in for 11. Anyway, I only block. I guess I get hit for 5, and he has 5 rune chants, which means that I am in a pretty desperate strait, which also means that I want to close out the game as fast as possible. Let's see if I can kill him. So, Ridge Rider shot and Nimblism here. By the way, chat, Drone of Brutality banned. What do you guys think? Drone of Brutality banned in all formats. So I'm going to use the opt from the cross wrap here to send the Sink Below to the bottom of the deck. Then I'm going to use the Plunder Run. I used Redliner, and that lets me use this Ridge Rider shot, which is going to let me do another opt. I'm very happy to see the second opt because it will allow me to get another chance to get a strong attack card, and I don't see it. It's a Razor Reflex. So now I end up deciding I'm going to leave the Razor on top. I'm going to get the Razor from my hand next turn. At this point, I'm just going to fire this as a very strong arrow, and it'll force out some defense from my opponent. So I play the Nimblism and fire the Ridge Rider shot, so it's going to be strength 10. This doesn't have Dominate, and I know my opponent will be able to stop it, but I'm hoping that it's going to take a bunch of the stuff that he has available. I'm hoping it will take enough of the stuff that he has available that I will then be able to survive and continue things next turn. But actually, he has an unmovable in Arsenal, so he's able to stop it. So that's only blocking 9, so he would actually die to this. So he blocks with another card, and I'm fine with that. I told him, like, yeah, that's fine. So he ends up blocking with 2 cards plus the unmovable, which actually makes me kind of happy because if I had gone for the big Dominate play, he might have just been able to counter me with the unmovable anyway, and that might have been that. So let's see what's happening here. Metagod says, saw it coming a year ago. Grogboxer says, Drone Ban is sad. I like Fatigue Prison, but seriously, it's fine, though I think it doesn't do much. Maybe Ira Mirrors if the goal was addressing the meta. Yeah, I think the Drone Ban is going to have... Okay, so then my opponent on his turn, by the way, just plays a Potion of Strength, I think, hoping for another big attack. I think it would have been better for him to swing at me here. I would have been able to survive, but I think it would have been better for him to swing at me here. Unfortunately, I have an awkward hand, but one thing that I have that I do have going for me is that Razor Reflex that I saw from last turn. So I'm now coming in with a Coax a Commotion. My opponent is going to use a Sink Below from hand. I am going to pitch something and play that Razor, and I'm hoping that is going to allow me to do some major damage. Yeah, so I think Fatigue Prison is not good. Prison is not that good. I think that Metagod says he saw it coming a year ago. I do think that Drone was too easy in the sense of like you can just throw in 2 copies of Drone into a deck and that's your endgame Fatigue strategy, and like those 2 cards alone are enough to make it like a pretty good strategy. You know, I thought about some of the other cards that can also play that role. For instance, Last Ditch Effort, and Drone just seemed like it was too easy a choice in terms of this is just going to set me up for the endgame. I don't think that banning it. I don't feel that banning it is that necessary from a current balance perspective or the current meta. It's conceivably going to be... It makes Ira decks worse in a fatigue situation, but I think that Ninja decks tend to be pretty good in that situation anyway, just because of the Karachi pressure. So it's really... You know, it is a nerf, but it's not a very big nerf. You know, Matt Rogers was saying he thought the deck might actually get stronger because you can run a card that blocks for 3 and is going to be better in normal matchups. People were running the Drone really just for the Ira matchup. But yeah, so then on the attack, I play my Razor Reflex. My opponent has a Springboard in hand, but it's only from hand, so I get in for that 1 damage, and that is all I need to take the game. So I end up winning this game just barely. I was definitely at major risk of death here, but I managed to push through and get the win with Ranger against Runeblade. Yeah, let's do, before I close down the stream, let's do some more, a little bit more drone chat here. So basically in that game, Irina's Prayer, I feel like Irina's Prayer saved me. I think my opponent did not block super optimally in that one turn where he played the Unmovable and got hit by some other stuff. But I think Irina's Prayer saved me from his big turn, and then I was able to just barely push through at the end there. But I think in both of these games, we can see both the strength of this deck on a good turn, but also some of the inconsistencies, where sometimes you're going to have that turn where it's just like, I'm just going to play some generic attack, and this is bad. And I do think that right now, I don't feel this is the most consistent, strongest deck out there for sure. And I want to do some more experimentation with Ranger. I do think that Ranger can at least, in theory, be a strong class. I think that the amount of aggression this type of deck can put out on a good turn is really high, which is strong. But at the same time, I do think that it's not necessarily the most consistent build out there. In fact, I think it's almost certainly not one of the most consistent builds. Okay. Grogboxer says, where did Matt say that FB? Someone did a video where almost immediately after it was announced, like he was playing at a tournament that had some of the New Zealand players, and he just like went up to Matt with his phone recording a video and asked him what he thought. And Matt said he thought that, I think Matt said that I forget who it was. I want to say it was Matt, Kale, and a guy that they call Saw. But I could be wrong, and my apologies if one of the other New Zealand players was actually the one in the video and was and I am forgetting him. But they seem to think. I think one of them said that he thought that they should have banned Flick Flack. The other one one of them said he thought they banned the wrong card. Matt said that he thought that banning Drone would not have a very big effect on the Ira decks and might actually make them stronger because they'd be able to play cards that were better in normal matchups. I think he was saying that it would be an opportunity to play another thing that blocked for 3 and increase your defense, but that the Drone was necessary in the Ira mirror. On the other hand, I don't know. You know, I think it's conceivable that you should have to have a card like... I think it's conceivable that you would end up replacing it with a card that's going to give you more aggression. So I know that like Red Leg Tap, for instance, also blocks for 2 and is more aggressive than Drone. So that might be an option to increase the attack power of these decks outside of the mirror. The main disadvantage is that they are going to get weaker in fatigue, but not that many decks can try to fatigue Ira normally, so that's a factor. With respect to Flick Flack, Metagod says Flick Flack shouldn't be banned, but it shouldn't be free, I think. Wizard of Elf says Flick Flack is fine, it just beats wide aggro, which is why it's so important in Blitz, but it's not OP. I actually think, so I think in Blitz, I think Flick Flack is a problem because there's some characters that you just can't really play because of Flick Flack. I mean, you can play them, But like Flick Flack, so like Kasai. So Flick Flack is incredibly bad for Kasai. For other characters that have a wide attack pattern, I think it's I think it has I don't think that it's like totally busted in all games, but I think that it has too warping an effect on the meta in terms of what other stuff is valid. So I would personally prefer to see Flick Flack. I don't think they should ban it. I think they should do an FFG style restricted list where there's only where so the way this would work is you can only have one of the things that's on the list. You can have as many copies as you want, but you have to choose one of them. And then I think the only things on the list should be Flick Flack and Ira. So you would have to choose either I have Flick Flack or I have Ira, which would then mean you could still do a Flick Flack Ninja control deck, but you would have to run it out of Benji or Katsu, which would mean that you would have less just efficient grind damage from the second Kadachi for 2 damage. Or you could play Ira and you would still have that efficient damage, but your defense would have to be a little weaker. So I think that I would like to see that change personally with respect to Flick Flack. I think that would be a good change to make, but we'll have to see. We'll have to see if they do anything. Obviously they have chosen not to intervene on that at this time. If you actually look at their reasoning with respect to banning Drone and Brutality, it isn't really about changing the current meta. Their reasoning with respect to Drone and Brutality, it's not about the current meta. It's about wanting to make a change that is going to affect things for the. It's about making a change that's going to affect things from the core game philosophy perspective. So in terms of the game philosophy, they were saying one of the core tenets of the game is supposed to be every card matters. You're making important decisions about using each of your cards, and the thing is, I think Drone of Brutality was making that less the case because there were cards that's just oh, this card's expendable. I can just block with this. I can just do whatever. Now, the really interesting thing is they also said Drone of Brutality isn't going to be printed in future Welcome to Wraith Unlimited. It's just going to be out of the game. Now, I think that's going to have an interesting impact in particular on... what's it called? I think that's going to have an interesting impact in particular on sealed play with Welcome to Wraith Unlimited, because I think Drone of Brutality is a very good card in that format. I've had a lot of fun with the sealed format, and I think Drone is quite strong there because games are more likely to go to fatigue. However, because they're removing it from the set completely and it won't be there, that's going to create some interesting situations, and I think ultimately we're going to see that less frequently. One other thing that I'll say is that some people have been making an investor's run on Flick Flack because it's now going to be on Drone of Brutality because it's now going to be out of print. So that's kind of an interesting situation. Gru DR says, Flick seems fine for me. Go tall and render your opponent's deck useless. Okay. So I'm playing tall Dorinthia to counter Ira. And I've had some pretty good success with that. I've won multiple skirmish events. My win rate against Ira is quite good. And I do think that's a good strategy. Going tall to counter Flick Flack has been doing well for me, but I think that people shouldn't have to do that. I feel like right now, I don't know. I might do some tries for coming up with something for Kasai. We'll see what happens. I could play around with some stuff. But I think that I think Flick Flack kind of forces some decisions a little bit too much, at least in my opinion. Similarly, Combo Ninja, if you're going to do Katsu Combo Ninja, that's going to have a lot of trouble with Flick Flack. It's really going to be difficult for you. And I think I'd like to see more diversity in decks, and I think Flick Flack is really limiting that at present. I think that card specifically, in conjunction with Ira, as she is presently, allows you to be extremely strong against wide decks, more so than I think would be optimal for the format. That's just my opinion, though. Metagod says, which forces everyone into a meta, go tall or lose. Grudiar says, then you tech against tall decks and the cycle continues. Yes, that's actually what we're currently seeing to some degree. So there's... I know that some of the Ira decks have been... if you compare the Calling decks from New Zealand to the most successful Ira skirmish decks in the US, the New Zealand decks have a lot less defensive stuff. They just have the Flick Flack defense, and they have more aggro cards. I think for both the Ira Mirror and for the Wizard matchup. In the US and EU kind of online skirmishes, we're really not seeing very many people playing Wizard. There are some, but Wizard is kind of a rare. I think Wizard has won one skirmish, and Ira and Dorinthia have each won more than 6 or something. So really, it's a very different situation here than in New Zealand. There just aren't as many experienced Wizard players, or people aren't playing it for whatever reason. And we are now seeing, I think, some of the Ira decks teching to fight Tall Dorinthia in particular, putting in more defense reactions. So, we're seeing some people even running Unmovable. We're seeing just a lot of defense coming out relative to what you see from some of the calling decks in New Zealand. Springboard Somersault, I think, is a great option if you're playing Ira right now. I think it's very strong against Warrior. While also having some pitch if you're the one taking the more aggressive stance. But yeah, just a lot of stuff like that. So I do think the meta is active. I don't think the meta is totally stagnant. But I do think that right now wide decks don't have as much of an opening as I would like to see. At least that's just my opinion. I could be wrong. It's possible no further changes are needed. We'll see what they do in the future. I personally am playing Tall Dorinthia in these skirmishes and doing pretty well with it, so I'm happy to keep doing that. But yeah, so interesting shifts, and ultimately I think the drone ban is going to be less a shift to the meta and more a shift just to try to keep the core game philosophy coherent. So that's it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the future, whether they're going to make more actions on the banned and restricted list. But at least for now, I think this is going to have a relatively minor effect on the overall state of balance, though I could be wrong. Maybe someone's going to come out with some ultimate Bravo fatigue deck that's going to be able to really fight those Iras, and they're not going to be able to stand up to it in the late game without drone anymore. I don't know. I have not haven't thought too much about that, but it'll be interesting to see how things develop. Gruder says, not to mention we're still in beta before Monarch drops. Yeah, so I think they've talked about how Monarch's going to be the full realization of some of the concepts in the game. I, for one, am really excited. I believe today is the 18th, and that means we are getting close, guys. Monarch is a little bit more than a month away, but in just a few more weeks, we're going to have preview season, which is going to really start. That's going to really be the start of the Monarch hype, in my opinion. And preview season could be a lot of fun. So it's going to be exciting to see what happens there, and we will see how things progress. All right, guys, I think that's going to do it for this stream. Thanks for watching. A little uncharacteristic for the normal stuff here. Metagod says 3 months for me because for whatever reason getting product in Canada is late. That's crazy. Monarch's not going to come out until June in Canada? That's wild, dude. I've never heard that before. Brewtapcast says super pumped. Yeah, even if it, but you know what? Even if it takes a bunch of months for it to come out in Canada, even if it takes a long time, we still have Tabletop Simulator. You can do that. You could print proxies and play on webcam. Metagod says it's scheduled for April, but I doubt it will be shipped on time. Grendel says trapped in snow. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Hopefully the release logistics will be good. Metagod says, welcome to Wraith and Ark and crew were late. Yeah, so he's just predicting it's going to be late based on the other stuff. Honestly, that might be a good prediction. One of the best techniques for making predictions is to just compare stuff to similar things that have happened in the past. So if the other sets have been late, that could be a bad sign here. Brewtapcast says, excited to see what happens in the pitch zone, and Wizard of Elf says, man, I love being Australian. Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens with it one way or another, whether it's playing with the normal cards at pre-release events, which I think I will probably not get to go to under the circumstances, but whether it's playing with normal cards at pre-release events, playing with unlimited cards when those come out for people who don't want to open first edition, going big and just opening a tons of first edition and playing that, just playing on Tabletop Simulator or with printed proxies because of delivery. I think a lot of people are definitely excited for Monarch, and it should be a lot of fun. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this stream. Thank you all for watching, and I will be back later. Next scheduled stream is on Tuesday, then we might get some stuff in before that. We'll have to see what happens. And this Saturday, though, I'm going to be playing on webcam, and it's going to be a special event. It's going to be the Lucky Gaming Skirmish. The Lucky Gaming Skirmish on Saturday. I'm going to be playing in it. I'm going to be streaming my games on webcam, And then if I get knocked out, I'm going to continue streaming and do commentary and hopefully stream all the way up to the finals one way or another. Now, I hope that the finals will involve me playing, but it's possible it will involve me as the commentator instead. And we should actually have some giveaways for the stream on Saturday for that Lucky Gaming TCG event. So stay tuned for that. It should be a lot of fun. Next normal stream will be next Tuesday, but that Lucky Gaming TCG skirmish stream is going to be a special event this Saturday, and it should be a lot of fun. So thank you guys. Thank you guys for watching. I will catch you guys later, and stay tuned for more Flesh and Blood content.